terms of questions, because there are lots of questions.
Hello.
Hello, Francois.
Hello, Julio. Hello, Emmanuel. Good morning, Shiva.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Starting now.
Hi, hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session at the RNI Days. I am Julio Lumbreras. I'm one of the members of the Mission Board on Cities, on climate neutral and smart cities. And as you probably know, this mission was just launched, the final report yesterday. Well, in fact, 2 days ago, on the 22nd, within the RNI Days. And today we are spending this session to talk about a critical issue of the mission, which is the investment and financing. How can we finance this transformation of 100 cities across Europe? So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, the amazing speakers we have today. Thank you for participating in the session. Thank you for all participants joining the session. Hopefully you will enjoy it. Hopefully you will have some ideas and inspiration from here. And we are very happy to hear from you, both during the meeting, but to do so, please mute your mic, even maybe the speakers while you are not speaking, because maybe there could be some noise if you don't mute the mic. So mute the mic, please. If you have any question, ask them in the chat, so we can know what you are thinking and what you want to know more. And we have someone, Julia is helping us with the questions, so we'll select some questions also to ask to the speakers, and we'll do Q&A at the end of the session. So without any further delay, I want to just say that, as I said before, this is part of the mission on climate neutral and smart cities. And as you know, this is part of the RNI Days 2020. We also thank the European Commission for organizing this event, for giving us the opportunity to discuss with you all about how to invest in the mission. And as you probably are aware, this session on investment strategy is an opportunity to present, discuss, debate, and connect with the speakers and with other people in the session on how to invest in the mission. And we have, as I said before, 3 amazing speakers. First one is Emmanuel Forest from he's a member of the Cities Mission Board, and he will start giving us an overview of the investment needs for the mission. Then we'll have Ms. Siva Dustar, who's the head of Innovation Finance Advisory at the European Investment Bank. Thank you so much, Siva, for joining us. And finally, Ms. François Guasper, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, who's part of Ile-de-France region. And thank you so much also, Francois, for joining us. So without any more delay, because I think the most important thing is to hear the speaker and then have a fruitful interaction and discussion. Emmanuel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I don't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
So I suppose that I have the floor. Can you confirm that you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Because there was a difficulty with your sound. So, okay, so I start. I understand that I start.
Yes.
That's okay. So I start with the presentation. It's a brief presentation. I must say it's a part of a section of the report, and Julio and I and subgroup worked hard on that. Just as an introduction, to remind you of the fact that the mission that we propose is to support and promote 100 European cities in their systemic transformation towards climate neutrality by 2030 by and for the citizens. And through a climate city contract, which was identified as the best mechanism to join the effort of all stakeholders at the city level, at the national level, and at the European level. And this mission is in line with Green Deal public priorities and also priorities of EU Recovery Fund. So the main issue, since the workshop is an investment strategy, was to make a costing of what will it cost to have 100 European cities climate neutral in the next 10 years. And I must say immediately that we worked, thanks to Julio and his connection and his knowledge, we made this costing with the assistance of the material economics, an experienced consultant in this field, and directly to the result, the cost of this mission for 100 European cities, having roughly an average of 100,000 citizens, would be 96 billion euro. That means that our costing says that it costs in the average 10,000 euro per citizen. Of course, it will be very different from one city to the other, from the south to the north, from the east to the west, and from the level already achieved by the cities which will be chosen. And interesting in this graph, and it's to comment from the left to the right. From the left, we have the various costs. It's upfront investment costs to make the city climate neutral. And you have 24 billion for transportation, 52 billion for energy efficient building, 9 billion for heat generation, 11 billion for electricity. And on the right, the last graph at 122 billion is all the benefits for the citizens. The benefits in savings first, and the main benefits are in savings over 40 years due to a decrease in energy costs, climatization costs, and so on. And additionally, also indirect benefits like wealth, like fresh air, and so on. And at the end, there would be a net positive economic case at 26 billion euro. That means that it's bankable, if I may say, as a whole project. But that means also that it's a huge upfront investment. So that's why, regarding the financing, we consider that, first of all, private actors will play a major role, and there will be an appetite to finance this project. I was in a session yesterday, and there were representatives of the financial sector that they say, if you require a small amount of money, you don't get it. If you require a big amount of money, you get it, because it means that the project is viable, and the previous slide shows that there is an indirect and direct benefits, which is such that for the economy of the city, there will be a huge positive effect, and that it was while financing it. We have to find also new business models allowing housing units deep retrofitting. There is a very good example from a city which didn't want to be quoted, but it is Ghent. In order to make possible to finance deep retrofitting of houses without any financial burden for the inhabitants. And the trick is that the investment which would be made through a loan wouldn't be paid back within the next 5 or 10 years, but at certain occasions when the house is sold, for example, it can be long-term. It requires long-term maturity loans, but I think that for the whole greening as whole, it will be the rule. And remaining gap must be filled through public funding to secure the whole project and to deliver the highest climate standards. So we proposed the innovative mechanism, first of all, lending and blending facility to make it easy for the cities to access to subsidies plus lending facilities. A joint effort, it will be a joint effort between the EU Commission, the EIB, we'll have a presentation in 1 minute, and EIB, which should be the EU Climate Bank. An emission level will be given to cities according to the process of selection. and it will give them a preferential access to all financial instruments and better confidence, I think, from the financial community. Next slide, just to mention that it's not a proposal, it's an assessment that we feel that as 70% of the cities are responsible for, that cities are responsible for 70% of the emissions, it would be logical that part of the Green Deal finance the mission. And we feel that through this very dynamic and very ambitious mission, we can make sure that at the end, as a result, 10% of the 320 billion financial resources of the Green Deal and the NFF will flow to the cities. Finally, last slide. So that requires for the cities, and we insisted on the fact that some cities like Stockholm, Copenhagen, Nordic cities in particular, are very at ease to get access to financing. It won't be the same for cities from the new member states of the last 10, 15 years. In the East. And so we feel that all negotiations on climate city contracts to access financing could be run by one single EU entity. Two forms of such a platform to be considered, the EIB advisory hub services, but at the end, decentralized negotiation platform could be put in place and run by the EIB offices in the member states. It's not a decision, it's just a proposal, an indication, and it's not to start a negotiation with my colleague Shiva, who will take the floor just after me. And so it was my transition for the next presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Manuel, and thank you for summarizing this in 6 minutes, which was a huge challenge because it's really hard to summarize all these concepts in such a short time. So now I give the floor to Siva Dudstar, who's the head of Innovation and Finance Advisory at the European Investment Bank. Thank you so much, Siva.
Indeed, thank you very much. I'm not sure whether you see me, but at least I hope you hear me, because I've had some technical issues. Everything okay? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Maybe the technical team can make it happen, because the camera seems to be on, but I don't see it. Anyway.
No problem, but we can see you and also the slide deck.
Yes, exactly. So thank you very much. Indeed, I mean, this is an exciting time to be on this panel, and it's really our honor to be part of this distinguished setup. Now, the EIB, I hope, is known to you all, and Emmanuel, of course, referred to it. I mean, we have very ambitious goals, and I think in the context of the clean cities, these ambitions are indeed very much aligned. The ambitions of being not only the EU bank, but also the EU climate bank. You see on the slide that, with that, we would like to mobilize €1 trillion in the next decade. We have effectively changed our lending policy, and by end of this year, we will be aligned on the Paris Agreement across all our activities. And by 25, we will actually have 50% of our activity have a positive impact. So I think these are the sort of activities that really will help us meet the ambitious goals also of the clean missions. Now, if you look at the cities today, they are, I think we all agree, and the experts, all understand that we are unfortunately living in rather linear cities. They are not sustainable across the board. What we hope to move towards is circular cities. I'm not sure whether you see the full slides, but okay, maybe it can be shifted a bit so that you see the full slide. So circular cities clearly are the ones that we are aiming for, and that of course takes a rather systemic, holistic approach, which is precisely, I think, what the mission boards are also looking for, so that they are not only regenerative, clean, resilient. And I think with the COVID crisis, this has become even more important as an objective. Now, the EIB already actually is doing quite a lot in this area, and if you look at all our various activities across both the advisory side, the knowledge sharing, the capacity building, but also on the financing side, both lending and blending. This is already the elements of that support are there. And clearly what needs to now happen is for the next MFF, we need to ensure that we continue to put the right budgets, the right expertise in-house that we have on both technical and financial issues together, so that indeed we meet the needs that the clean cities all over Europe will have. Now, I'm speaking here from the perspective also of Innofin Advisory. This is the area that I'm responsible for. And I just, on this slide, it's a rather busy slide, but just to give you a quick sense of the type of activities that we are working on coming into it from the innovation. I think what is clear is we need to ensure that when we are now moving from a linear to a circular city, we are also bringing in innovation, business model innovation, and innovation as also with respect to the smartness of smartening up the cities. So we do believe that going forward, our work in clean cities is going to be quite important. And it's a matter of connecting the dots, because we are working a lot with innovative companies that have a very important role and technologies that can help cities to achieve their objectives. But it's a matter of bringing those inside. I guess and with that, bringing that into this mission sort of orientation, where we see sort of how various companies, elements, ideas can all support. We also do these thematic studies, and I will give you a flavor of that in the next slide. We launched a few years ago an innovative transport. We published an innovative transport study, which you can also download on our website. And as a follow-up, we actually did now a pilot action testing some of the ideas with these innovative companies active in the innovative transport space. And what we realize in these sort of very pilot type activities is how important it is that our financing tools are further refined, adapted to the growing needs of these innovative companies also in the transport sector. So these are the sort of things that I believe all will feed into in the future into the mission orientation. So now very quickly about the actual missions, if you look at the 5 missions and sort of the work that is ahead of the European Commission, the EIB hopefully will increasingly bring also some mission orientation into its own activities. I mean, this is very much also where we in advisory hope to continue to play an important role in this. And maybe to sort of end on the actual climate neutral and smart cities, we have a pilot action going on with RTD with respect to the hydrogen. And actually now hydrogen per se has obviously has applications across beyond just cities. But what we are doing here, the type of activity is actually identifying investors, private, public, who would be interested in supporting hydrogen innovation. I think this type of mapping exercise is going to be quite crucial in the future, as we need to obviously mobilize additional private capital. And this is really where the EIB's expertise will also be quite important. So this is to give you a flavor of the various elements that are coming right now into play. And we hope that with that, we will meet obviously also the needs of the clean cities and work very closely with the mission boards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Siva. Thank you for the overview of different instruments that you have, and thank you for also inspiring us on future and innovative approaches. So now we had first an overview of the mission and also the financial aspects. Then the European Investment Bank showed us some potential ways to finance this mission. And now we have the real players here, the cities and regions. And thank you so much, Francois. You are representing the Ile-de-France, the largest region in France, and it's good to have a region and not a city, because there are lots of metropolitan issues. So thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julio. Thank you for having me today at this important session. Of course, I represent Île-de-France, but this morning I will speak on behalf of ERIN, the European network which promotes local and regional dimension in the European research and innovation policies and programs, because the members of ERIN have taken an active role in shaping this mission on climate neutral and smart cities. We have closely, you know that Julio followed the work on the mission board and provide contribution with recommendation, especially on the investment strategy. And we have developed an input document to the report of the mission, and I'm happy this morning to deliver some key elements of our contribution. The investment strategy refer to the Climate City contract and introduced by the mission in the report. And before introducing the strategy, I think that we have to determine we will take part in it. In ERIN, we think that the mission should ensure that everyone who is ready to commit to the ambition of the climate neutrality can participate. Because we think that we must have a systemic vision of the city. We must develop a territorial cooperation and integrate the peri-urban and rural areas, because a city's carbon footprint cannot be analyzed without taking into account all the flows that go and beyond the border of the city. We know that solutions to decarbonize cities are often located in peri-urban and rural areas, for example, tree model terminals or waste centers. So ERIN, we advocate in favor of an ecosystem approach. It's important to determine the investment strategy, and this approach supports the collaboration of all actors, local level, including administration, the private sector, of course, knowledge providers, and the citizen. It is obvious that local administration cannot reach the climate neutrality in isolation. Cities can take the role of facilitator, for example, and ensure the involvement of industry, academia, civil society towards a common goal. At this stage, I would like to pay attention on the role of the specific role of the regions have to play. The report mentioned the region as possible co-founders, but we think that the role of the region is broader than that, given their competencies in economic development, regional and urban spatial planning, research innovation, for example. There is a need to better integrate them in the Climate City contract. The report of the board strongly focuses on the need for novel approaches to governance, and we think that the governance and the strategy investment are linking. We support the principle of multi-level government cooperation. For us, is a prerequisite for success to reach the ambitious target of climate neutrality. And we support the development of an agreement among all the partners, the public partner, local, regional, national, federal, and EU level, of course. However, in some places, there is already this kind of governance. So we think that the mission must not multiply the governance framework. And to be efficient, the idea would be more to evaluate the existing governance framework and to revise, if needed, to integrate the regional, national, and European level in them. To build the investment strategy, I think that cities have to prepare a roadmap with the actions that need to be implemented to reach the target, and the investment strategy will be developed based on this roadmap, and showing that the action can be financed and implemented. So how could this work? For example, today, administration allocate funds on initiative from different sectors, energy, mobility, without a global investment strategy. This approach is too fragmented, and the idea would be to help to support administration, cities, to organize a systemic approach, to break out the silos on the different sectors, and to obtain, in a view to obtain a crossover between public policies. For example, the one-stop shop mentioned in the report and set up in the Green Deal call on a city's mission could assist the administration to redesign the public policies and systematically to move towards carbon neutrality. The European Fund could finally support the cities in this rethinking of public policies. And this new policy should be discussed and revised with the citizen, with all the actors concerned. Thanks to this systemic approach, cities should move from small project to large-scale integrated project. And this new approach would accelerate the growth in competencies of administration, cities, to reach the climate neutrality by 2030. And another idea is that we could imagine that local authorities who have made this effort could receive incentive for the European level. So, of course, to be efficient, all funds, public, private, have to be mobilized at the same times. European level, of course, always on Europe. We already know that it will be a slight contribution. Connecting Europe Facility, Digital Europe, Structural Fund, financial instruments such as InvestEU. Regarding Structural Fund, it's a tricky point because we know that the managing authorities are currently finalized their operational programs, and they are not yet informed on this request to participate to the mission. So I think that perhaps it may be too late, I don't know, but it's a tricky point. Regarding the European program, we know that all the European programs targeting climate neutrality are scattered, and it's also a tricky point. I think that we think that the mission proposed to have a systemic approach once again, and to achieve this, the Commission must progress towards setting up a single one-stop shop for European Fund for the city mission. But we know that it's complicated in the Commission, in the different DGs. And of course, we know that the amount from the European funds will be only a small part of the overall budget. And we need additional funds, and we absolutely need to bring on the national level and the private sector too. A problem to be solved will be how we can mobilize all the funds in the only one system. We will have a problem of subsidiarity. We know that. We need to resolve that. And how we can create synergy between cohesion, innovation fund, for example, two funds that not have the same objective or the same operating rules. So if we want to reach the target by 2030, we have to react now and very quickly.
Thank you so much, Francois. So now we have almost a bit more than 30 minutes to discuss all these issues. So summarizing, the mission will need a huge investment. So Emmanuel talked about this 96 billion euros for 100 cities, which is much more than the approximately 1 billion that could be allocated to the mission within Horizon Europe. So it's a different scale. So we need to mobilize lots of money. And as we were talking about, it should come from both public and private investment. And then in the mission board, we propose 3 instruments to do that. One, the climate contract, that will provide cities with a label, and we can discuss about this. There is one question about this in the Q&A. And this is one instrument, which is an instrument just to label cities and to have access to finance. And then we have 2 specific financial instruments. One is the one-stop shop, and second is the lending and blending facility. The one-stop shop aims at having one place to receive funds and to have access to different funds in an easier way. And the lending and blending goes to try to mobilize regional and national funding and not only European one, right? So there is some questions around this. I'll start with the one-stop shop because some people here are saying if you can explain a bit more how this one-stop shop facility or idea can work. So there is a specific question for you, Siva, and now we can see you. Thank you for solving the technical problems as well. So could you maybe explain a bit more how this could work?
Yes. Do you hear me also?
Yes, we
Excellent.
can.
Okay.
Hear you.
So, well, the one-stop shop, I mean, in some ways we have some kind of a one-stop shop already piloted or done actually over this current MFF through the advisory hub. So the idea of effectively reaching out via the hub to then tap into the EIB's in-house financial and technical expertise, and where it needs to be complemented, having also then access to maybe external expertise. So this sort of approach of therefore having this one place gateway does exist. I think it makes certainly from an, how should I say it, listening to the discussion here, it makes sense, of course, to explore how this could be applied then in the case of the city's mission. I think these are precisely the sort of things that over the next few months, as part of the whole Invest EU advisory hub, discussions also with Horizon Europe, we need to basically look at the more detailed implementation, how much of what we have done through the advisory hub should continue to stay, how much needs to be adapted. I think these are precisely the sort of discussions that I know have kind of started, but really need to become much more detailed. And I mean, the devil will be in the detail, but I think the concept exists, and I think it's really definitely something we need to consider. Let's build on the prior success and experience and lesson learned and do things better.
Thank you so much. And could maybe Emmanuel or Francois speak a bit more to one-stop shop and how this could help both more like cities that are more advanced in terms of climate neutrality and also cities that are less advanced? So how this one-stop shop can help regions and cities? Thank you.
Okay, I will reply to your two questions.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to say that co-creation process is a key word, of the Research Innovation Days, the key word of Horizon Europe since the beginning. So for us, for ERIN, for cities and regions, I think that now it is essential that the new financial instrument will be co-designed together with the cities. And we propose that a group including all contracting parties at all government levels will be established to co-design this functional instrument. No offense, Shiva, but some products proposed by the EIB are too complex to ensure work well. Of course, we have already experimented with them, Elena, Safe Landing Facility, FC. We use this instrument, but they are quite complex, and we think that there are still instruments for mechanisms so complicated, especially for small and medium cities, that sometimes they decide to contact you. So I think that it's time for us to work together and to try to co-design this financial instrument. And it will be also, I think, necessary to involve the Open National Bank, for example, and work together. And for the city more advanced and the city we are not already established climate energy plan, for example. In ERIN, we suggest that to form a cluster of cities between the more advanced city and the others to support them. And this clustering should be supported financially because the city engaged would support the others in the effort to implement solution, for example. So it could be a solution. We don't like the term of front runner, for example, because it perhaps creates discrimination. So we prefer the term of clustering. And we know that the government of India already launched this kind of clustering with training programs, I think. So it works well. So why not to use that?
Yeah, thank you. And you also talked about during your presentation about the importance of preparing this roadmap. Mm-hmm. So how can this maybe one-stop shop and how all this process can help preparing the roadmap?
I think that the one-stop shop could support administration and all the cities to design this roadmap. This roadmap could be what I said, to rethinking the public policies, because we already allocate funds from energy and climate plan, but perhaps not in a good way. We need to be more efficient and also to accelerate this energy transition. So we think that the one-stop shop could help us to redesign, to rethinking public policies, and to build a financial package to support that. So the one-stop shop could definitely assist and support cities administration in this way.
Thank you, Francois. I think Siva wants to talk. Thank you.
Yes. No, I mean, indeed, because what Françoise said actually resonates with me on the complexity. You mentioned that the instruments are complex, and our studies, I mean, given that I'm coming from the advisory angle as well, I mean, we have over 30 studies across all these sectors, and one of the common themes that comes out is one, that many don't even know really what is out there, and second, that it seems very fragmented and complex. I think here the word co-creation is going to be critical, and I would also like to maybe put to you that very often what the challenge is from an EIB perspective is when you blend these various budgets. As you all know, these budgets comes with strings attached, and this is where I think the mission boards will really revolutionize or challenge to a great extent some of these old patterns of strings attached to budgets, because they take a holistic approach for a mission, a moonshot of a clean city. And then you have these budgets that have historically had strings attached either by eligibility on sectoral front or geography or what have you. And this creates a real sometimes challenge. It's like you put something in a blender to mix, but then, you have these chunky things that don't want to go into the blender, or and you cannot blend it ultimately. And so it's already hard to blend it, but then it's becoming even harder to make it work for a particular project promoter. So I would put it also perhaps as part of the co-creation to those who give the budget to think across the fact that we need more flexibility.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think these two words are pretty important. Co-creation with all stakeholders, and so not a very top-down approach, but co-creating with different stakeholders, and also flexibility, which is not easy, but because we of course need some rules, but we also need flexibility to be innovative. I don't know if Manuel wants to say something else, talk about the one-stop shop.
Yes, of course, and at the same time, I would like to answer a question from Groningen and a remark saying that we have no time to lose, and that a total financial package is needed, not a segregated approach. And I agree with that. Nevertheless, it will be complex projects. And I will take the example of securing a classical banking facility for a huge PPP or project finance, and very often the EIB is involved in it. And you have a financial advisor for the borrower, you have then arrangers, then sub-arrangers, and then syndication. And there is a huge amount of work to do. And if you take a city, as I said, there is the issue of building, the issue of transportation, the issue of smart city in a general way, additionally energy, electricity, and heat generation. So there is been several projects probably in one big project, and one issue will be solved by a specific PPP with a specific consortium of companies, and another one with more subsidy or less subsidies, and so on. I think the one-stop shop, the first is to have one partner at the EU level, and also to support and to advise, and to be to assist the municipality over the whole process, to anticipate all the steps and to speed it up. So I think it will be complex. So you cannot have one stop with you go to the one-stop shop and you come back with a check of 1 billion, because business doesn't work. There will be European tenders, so there will be stakeholders will have signed the contracts, but anyway, when there will be section as transportation for a PPP, for a new tram or something else, there will be a tender, there will be a specific financing. And so I think the one-stop shop is the place where people say they could refer at any time to say, is it wrong, is it right? And for cities who have no experience, to get the better advice, because the IB, for instance, knows banking market very well, has always very tough conditions because EIB cannot go bankruptcy, and sometimes it's tougher than private banks. And so if you are advised by the EIB as financial advisor, I think it's a very good advantage to get access to private fundings from all over the world, because it will be necessary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel. And you were, Siva, talking about this blender, and now we here proposed a different blender, which is this lending and blending facility. So we are all aware of the huge amount of money needed to be invested in cities to transform them and to modernize all the systems, mobility, resource recycling, food systems, and everything in the city, because as you said, this mission is a very holistic and with a very systemic approach. So we have to change and transform all the systems, and this will require a lot of money. So how could the proposed lending and blending facility should work in cooperation with national climate funding and financing facilities and with the research and innovation resources to support such a massive investment? Do you have any ideas on how to do that, how to implement this blender?
Yes, I mean, I think what will be quite, I think what we need to put our head around is, as appealing as it is to have one big, blender or one big facility that will solve all our needs, I personally would think that when it comes to the financing, this is, we will have many different borrowers. We will have the small ones, the small companies, we will have the public entities, we will have large companies that are, and it's not that, ultimately, I don't think it's ultimately in the interest of having this one big thing. What I think we need to do better, is two things. One is there's definitely part of the communication, the terminology that we all need to use in order to bridge both the private and the public sector funders. And these are the sort of things that when we now do some of the advisory work, let's say on hydrogen, when we are reaching out to large institutional investors, we need to understand when the EU refers to hydrogen as a new technology, how does that resonate with public investors? What do they see? How do they come into this? Because sometimes it's also a matter of terminology, of kind of you need to almost blend a bit also the thinking on and then get a language that both parties can associate with, because in some ways if we want to mobilize the private capital needs to have certain level of visibility, and to have a one big sort of thing may not ultimately get investors the type of either return criteria or some visibility of ultimately what this instrument would be investing in. So I guess these 2 points being the terminology and then ultimately the implementation. And therefore, for those two reasons, I would say, a lot of it ultimately will boil down to using existing proven instruments. But to Francois' point and also to Emmanuel's point, let's somehow find a way to make them more accessible, more user-friendly, also make it easier, maybe use digital platforms or whatever we can to make it easier to understand which instruments are best fitted for which type of projects, use advisory to really guide, So, I think it's ultimately a combination of a lot of things. But I personally, but this is my personal view, I don't think one big, big thing will just solve all our needs.
Fully agree. Could you share your perspectives for either Francois or Emmanuel? How this lending and blending facility could work, and if you have any ideas on how to implement this?
For us, the most important thing is to build the roadmap and to achieve an investment strategy. And after, of course, we know that the amount, as the budget is so huge that, of course, we need loans. But once again, I think that we need to work together and to build this new strategy together with the banks, EIB and the other. It's not something that we can say today, okay, I need that. No, we need to build, we need to change our way of thinking and to develop this global approach oriented to reach the climate neutrality. That is the first thing, very important. Investment will be the tool to reach the targets. But we need to start with the beginning. The beginning is how now we have to rethinking, to redesign what we are doing today in our daily life. In France, a lot of cities are already implemented climate energy plan. It's mandatory. The city with more than 20,000 inhabitants have the obligation to have this plan of energy and climate. And so we are today working to operate this energy transition, but we need to accelerate this if we want to reach 2030. So first thing is to build this roadmap, to create this systemic approach, to break out the silos between all the different sectors, to not put money on energy efficiency for building, to not put money on mobility, sustainable mobility, but to create the city of tomorrow with integrated project.
Yeah, thank you so much. So very important idea. So working together, breaking down silos, and as Siva was saying, bridging the private and the public sectors and having them working together. Any other ideas, Emmanuel, from your side?
Yes, I fully agree with what François has just said. And my experience and the group where I work, which I don't represent today, we say that it's the problem is never to find financial means. The problem is only to find good projects. When you have good projects, you find the money. When you don't have good projects, you don't find the money. And I think it's also true for the recovery. The recovery is not to know whether there will be money for recovery. So what do we invent for the future? And it's true for the city, but for our whole life as a whole. How do we change to make our society a good project? I always take the example of transportation. When I asked my colleague 1 year and a half ago what would be the best measure to improve climate neutrality in the cities, and he said the first measure is to decrease the number of constrained moves around the city for work. So it's distant working. And okay, how is it difficult? And in 1 week, we found that it was quite easy to work distantly. So it's and so we have kind of projects. So and I think the strength of the mission is precisely to help the cities to design a very bankable and financial projects. And then, of course, when I say it's you must have financial means, I liked this expression, a user-friendly financial facilities, and perhaps to bridge the silos between the various administrations of the EU, between subsidies and lending facilities. And as we are requiring from the city administration to break their own silos, because they have to have a holistic approach, and it's not necessarily consistent with their organization in the separate departments, the traditional organization. So everyone has to break the silos to make this project work. But, and that's why lending and lending facility, I would say, for the man in the street is to have a user-friendly access to European financial facilities.
Thank you so much. I think that's very, very exciting, Emmanuel, and it's great to hear that there is no financial problems, which is good to know for cities. I like this approach because it gives us the opportunity to work in cities, because if we have good projects, money will come. And I fully agree, we have to work on this. And we are touching the core of how to do that, right? Breaking down silos, working together, bringing all stakeholders, which is hard. And to do so, we proposed in the mission board this climate city contract, which won't try to offer a new governance system, as you, Francois, were saying. So it's not about changing the governance, it's about bringing people together and working on this multi-level governance that is already in place. So do you have any ideas on how to implement this contract, or which are the main characteristics that the contract should have? Yes, Siva, thank you.
No, sorry. Actually, there was just, as Emmanuel was speaking, I just wanted to bring two ideas just onto this, and then we can, of course, move to your question.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was generally just wondering, because of the citizens' engagement that is all over, the missions, which I really think is so fundamental and so refreshing. So two things. One is crowdfunding. How can we have citizens also become stakeholders in even putting their own, maybe their own money into these things, because ultimately a lot of this is for their benefit, and citizens have all savings. So I want to make sure that we think also of financing being a bottom up thing. And as you know, there are a lot of crowdfunding platforms. The second point is not maybe the citizens much, but really I think in the financing we need to look at innovative procurement. The procurement of innovation and the power of procurement that is so that is there. And here, it's a matter of looking at it also not just city by city, but if you think of it, as cities come together, the power of purchasing power that they bring collectively, that they can then use to the procurers of in ways like, let's say, I'm thinking of data access and so on. They have collectively bargaining power, which is actually quite powerful. So I just want to put that in, because we always think of blending, lending, all of that stuff, but there is crowdfunding, there is the power of procurement. And let's not leave those important other sources away, which could actually mobilize even more private and public financing down the line from the EIB.
Thank you, Siva. And in fact, maybe we can skip the Climate City contract question, because it's more related to governance, and we are now talking on financing. So I think that these two things are very, very important. So how can we use the city as a platform to both, crowdsource, having these people investing money and also maybe offering different services? So how the citizens can play a different role in the city, and also this innovative procurement. So do you have any ideas on how to implement this, Emmanuel, Francois?
The first thing perhaps is, and I mentioned this previously, but once again, I think that the new approach that we have to propose should be discussed and reviewed with the citizen. Firstly, it's just not a presentation. Citizens now are actors. We cannot, I think, reach the climate neutrality by 2030 without citizens. The citizen is not possible. So firstly, we need to discuss with the citizen, and we need to dialogue with the citizen, and citizens are now actors. They are concerned about this contract, about these new policies, etc. So if you want to develop innovative procurement, crowdfunding, they need to understand why they are concerned, why they need to move, why they need why they need to be actors. So we need to associate them.
Yeah, fully agree. Emmanuel, do you have anything else? No. So we have 6 minutes left, so we're almost finalizing the session. So there is some questions in the Q&A that I would love to answer, but we don't have too much time. So there is one question on the one-stop shop facility in the mission board compared to the Green Deal call, and it's answered for this is this action, the Green Deal call, can be considered as a precursor of the climate neutral and smart cities mission. So it's like the building blocks, which is the cities mission is expected, as you know, to be developed under the Horizon Europe program. And in fact, the notion of these climate city contracts and everything under the mission board is a concept that is developed for the mission, but this Green Deal call can be a pilot to test and to prove these ideas. Okay, so of course they should be both related. That's trying to answer this. And there is also one question on, or some questions on, how other cities and other countries can participate, like third member states, associated states, and so on, and countries like Switzerland, and that's the most voted question. So of course, we know that, and maybe Emmanuel, if you want to also answer this, please feel free to join and to complement my answer. But of course, we know that this climate neutrality is not a European challenge; it's a global challenge. Otherwise, we won't solve the problem, because Europe is only part of the problem and only part of the solution, right? So of course, we need the cooperation with others, right? We just established a working group within the mission board to think of how to internationalize the mission and how to cooperate and work and collaborate with other countries and other regions. So we are working on this, and the cities mission is to be decided on the Horizon Europe, and still to be decided on the association to Horizon Europe. And we will have an international cooperation component, but this is still to be developed. So we are working on this because we know how important it is. And of course, other countries could and will participate if they want, but we still have to work on how to do this in practice. Do you have any other comments on this, Emmanuel? No, you are muted now. Okay.
Yes, due to the time, I think it will be also a kind of conclusion. So the question was.
So it's
okay. My conclusion, because I wanted to answer several questions. No, I used to say that this mission was a proof of concept of the Green Deal. Yes, the Green Deal on 100 cities. If it works, it proves that the Green Deal is feasible first, and secondly, as we said in the report, that these cities will be lighthouse projects for all other European cities who will have the opportunity to get access to the right, to the best practices to become climate neutral. And there will be upfront already a cooperation between the 100 cities and other European cities. And additionally, I think it could be a lighthouse for other European cities, as De Gaulle said, from Atlantic to Vladivostok, and around the world, because our goal is perhaps to make Europe the best place to live in the world. And if we succeed, I think it will be very interesting for other cities, for other countries, and of course we will be ready to cooperate. And within the neighboring policy, I think there are some opportunities to launch the process with other partners, or with Switzerland in the framework which does exist. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. So we only have 1.5 minutes left, and I want to wrap up and summarize the session. I have lots of notes, but I prefer if you summarize. So I would ask you in 20 seconds, like a tweet, how would you summarize the session? Which are the key messages? One sentence for each of you, please. Siva? Or, well, whoever wants, or Francois, or Emmanuel, we'll have 1 minute. So.
Okay. I will perhaps just keywords.
Yes.
What
okay.
multi-level cooperation, clustering, roadmap, investment strategy, co-design financial instrument together, and co-creation.
Wow, great. Siva, please.
Strengthening the public-private partnership.
Excellent.
Not fair. Françoise has said it all, but so let me bring in maybe a few other ideas on top of what Françoise said. So creativity, imagination, and sort of as a again crowdfunding. I mean, really, citizen engagement, putting also. Empowering, thinking of finance not as a top-down but bottom-up, and collaboration, because there is a lot going on. The bank the bank just joined yesterday also the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, which, as you know, is also a big initiative. So it's a lot of it is about connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots. Great. Emmanuel, one last word.
Yes, I was thinking yesterday of a nickname, a personal nickname for the mission, and I thought of Blue Sky Mission, because first of all, the Apollo missions were all shot by good weather, and I remember Blue Sky because I remember. And then secondly, it's Blue Sky thinking in a company is to think out of the box, out of the constraint, the usual constraint, and thirdly, it's the goal to that we will live in very healthy and pure cities.
Okay, thank you so much for having you today here and working on this Blue Sky mission, and and thank you so much. And we have a hard work ahead, but all together we can work and we can really transform our cities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for your moderation.
Thank you, Julia, for the moderation.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 See you soon, Shiva.
See you.
We should wait.